I think it is interesting that he didn't say more, and it's interesting that he is putting the imperative on briefing his own members, which we expect to happen in a very short time from now. I think Speaker McCarthy probably, perhaps rightfully concerned about saying the wrong thing or phrasing something clumsily in response to a media question, which could, of course, complicate his calculus as he tries to keep his own members on board. About the only thing of substance he said there that I heard, Kelsey, was that there are no new taxes in this deal. And also just the point we should perhaps mention about him saying that he will post the text of the bill tomorrow and there will be a vote on Wednesday. That really is a reference or allusion to a promise that members should be given 72 hours to read any legislation that passes through the House. That was something that Conservative members of Speaker McCarthy's conference have been keen to see right across the board. So that's the takeaways, I think, from that very brief news appearance by the Speaker.
Well, we as Americans definitely want some answers. And of course, this is nice to hear that they possibly have reportedly a deal, is what McCarthy is saying. But what is the likelihood that they're going to vote in favor of this deal? Because if they don't, we're going to be... of that,
I think it...
No, please go.
No, go ahead, Kelsey.
Well, if they don't, we're going to be back into the same situation as we were yesterday or earlier today.
Yeah, that's right. And that's why it's particularly important to see how Republicans react to this deal. We'll hear reports of that pretty soon, I'm sure, because the danger for Speaker McCarthy is that the more hardline or ideologically committed members of his own conference would rebel against this because it doesn't limit spending as much as they might like. The math in the House of Representatives, as you know, Kelsey, is quite closely balanced. Republicans only have a very small majority. Having said that, because of the nature of this deal, it seems likely that a large number of Democrats could vote for it, a significant number of Republicans vote for it, and that then would mean that the people at the extremes would matter much less. You would get it through the House on that kind of a vote. But I do think Speaker McCarthy is going to want, as they say, a majority of the majority. In other words, he wants most of his members, at least, to back this. If they don't, then that's a whole other ball game, and we could be in quite a lot of peril, I would think.
Niall, Stanage, we're going to continue following this. Of course, we still got a lot of questions, hoping to get more information from House Speaker Kevin McCarthy. But of course, we will have to wait. Now, I do want to go ahead and bring in our Washington correspondent, Evyn Moon. Moon, can you kind of tell us the latest on what we heard? What's expected to be in this debt ceiling deal?
Yeah, Kelsey. Well, as you saw, we didn't hear much. Kevin McCarthy there speaking for what felt like only less than a minute or two, but saying that they did come to a deal, that he was set to speak with President Biden again tomorrow, that they'd have something written and posted by tomorrow, and that they would expect a vote on Wednesday on this. Now, as Niall said earlier, the winner of this tonight, really the American people. We came just within a few days of a potential default, which would have been bad news for the U.S. economy and for Americans. So this is really a big deal that this deal came down tonight, and it's a Saturday. It's a Saturday of Memorial Day weekend, so no surprise that he didn't want to take questions. He said they have a lot of work left to do, that they're going to continue writing this tonight. But he did tweet that after Biden wasted time and refused to negotiate for months, they've come to an agreement in principle that is worthy of the American people, that there's more work to do. Now, McCarthy may worry about the people to his right balking at this deal. Republicans have really tried drawing tough lines on this. They wanted more for border security and spending cuts. So we'll have to take a look at what's posted tomorrow and see where the tough lines had to be drawn, Kelsey.
You know, Evyn, Niall kind of said that there'd be no new taxes. Is there anything that you can say in regards to that?
I mean, that was one of the big hard lines for Democrats. It was a key element of negotiations. Democrats insisting that the government had a revenue problem, seeking to solve it with taxes on the wealthy, and Republicans making this more about government spending. So the deal will probably not include increases to taxes, which would mark a win for Republicans in this case. But we'll have to see tomorrow, Kelsey.
Great reporting. Thank you so much. And thanks for following, Evyn.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.